We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No.
Amazing claims from a former member of the American intelligence services, David Grusch. He says that we are not alone. Aliens do exist, and they have visited Earth. The US government has hard evidence, he says, in the form of several spacecraft and even alien bodies. He claims the US government has been hiding all of this from the public as part of a sophisticated disinformation campaign. Now, for years, those claiming these strange sightings were aliens were treated as cranks and conspiracy theorists. Now it appears they may have been right all along.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone.
UFOs exist. The U.S. government found quite a number of them, and they are indeed of non-human origin.
The whistleblower's shocking new claims about our country's research into UFOs.
A bombshell claim about UFOs. A former U.S. intelligence official, an Air Force veteran, claims a top-secret program is withholding evidence of alien spacecraft.
David Grusch. Let's find out who he is and what his credentials were.
He's a decorated veteran. He's described as beyond reproach. It's not just him. It's multiple intelligence officials who have reported on this to Congress.
He essentially said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress, and they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Okay, let's bring in our guest now. And today we have Nick Pope, who used to run the British government's UFO project. He thinks there's a possibility there's life in space, but no conclusive evidence yet. And we also have Stephen Bassett, a political activist who believes there is irrefutable evidence that extraterrestrial life does exist. Welcome to both of you. Nick Pope, if I may start with you. Very simply, what do you make of David Grusch's claims?
Well, there's an old saying in the intelligence analysis community, interesting if true. And this is perfect for this situation. David Grusch is who he says he is, and he sat in the Air Force and in the United States intelligence community in a position where he absolutely did have direct involvement with this subject. He was a member of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. But at the moment, while these claims are absolutely sensational and really fascinating, they are not yet validated. And that validation, I think, will have to come from the United States Congress, which is pressing the US government on this issue anyway. So David Grusch's claims are simply going to fit in alongside some other claims which have been received. And the intelligence committees in Congress, both in the Senate and the House, are going to have to try to get to the bottom of this. I hope it's true. I mean, this would be an amazing story and it would change everything. But I don't think we ought to yet say that it's proven, because it's not.
Grusch says he's putting his reputation on the line, he's risking his personal safety. What more do you want to see from him?
Well, I think by his own admission, he has not seen any of this material. He talks about a crash retrieval program. He has personally seen no spaceships, no wreckage. So he's one step removed from this program that he has said exists somewhere in the military intelligence community. So what we really need is confirmation that that program exists. We need its name. We need the name of the director, the name of the agency in which it's embedded. And frankly, you know, at the moment, with the best will in the world, this is a great story, but we actually need to get our hands on the physical debris that he says exists, so that scientists can test it.
Stephen, do you believe David Grusch?
I have high confidence that what he's saying is correct. We know quite a bit about his efforts to come forward, filing of complaint with the IG office, the DOD, or the IG at the Intel offices. I know the attorney involved. He has been trying to come forward for some time, but he has been patient to a degree. But ultimately, he had to get aggressive because he was getting death threats and other problems because he had come out within government, but still there were people in government that didn't like that. This is one of the reasons why recent legislation in the Senate, which was eventually signed by the president, called for more protection for witnesses, including a paragraph indicating that they could sue the government. Now, that was taken out of that legislation before it was signed by the president. We have been heading towards hearings, most likely, hopefully, in the Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Mark Warner. There are a number of witnesses, well over a dozen, maybe more, who have been interviewed by AARO. We think they've been interviewed by members of the staff. And he might well have been one of those witnesses. But he has jumped the gun, you might say. He lost patience and was concerned for his safety. And so he went public with the assistance of journalists Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. They approached significant entities like the Post and the Times, but they simply couldn't take on a story that big in that quick of time. So they went to the debrief, they went to News Nation and put it out. But I'm quite sure that when the Senate hearings begin, and they could be called at any time, he will be, along with quite a few other military witnesses, a witness, and he will say under oath that while working for the task force, he talked with individuals who do work in those programs, who cannot come forward, and he will give that testimony. And eventually, those people, the ones that he talked to that worked in those programs, they will also be sitting in front of the Intel Committee, and they will tell us directly. So I have complete confidence in this.
Just quickly, if the government is trying to cover everything up and has been heading a disinformation campaign for many, many years, why did they give him authority to talk about it now?
Yes. The truth embargo, as I call it, it's not a cover-up, it's a truth embargo, is essentially over. The stigma is gone. The media is producing thousands of articles. There's been legislation 3 consecutive years. The truth embargo on the ET presence is essentially coming to an end. I expect hearings very soon, and I expect the President of the United States to confirm to the American people and the world that we are engaged with non-human intelligence, or extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them. That should happen this summer. David Grusch has played a role. He got out ahead of things a little bit.
Right.
For concern for his safety. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, well, we look forward to that. Now, David Grusch, of course, is just the latest in a line of people, a long line of people to make claims about UFOs, a line that actually goes back further than you might think.
The whole fleet of them, look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. I think it.
We tend to think of UFOs as a modern phenomenon, but a quick internet search reveals the UFO chronology stretches way back to Roman times, if not before. The Roman historian Titus Livy recorded Navium specium di caelo ad fulcis. Phantom ships had been seen gleaming in the sky. That was just over 2,000 years ago. In recent times, the 1947 Roswell incident is probably the most recognizable chapter in UFO history. Walter Haut, a US Army Air Force spokesman, reported at the time that they'd captured a flying disc or saucer, but hours later, the Army announced it was actually a crashed weather balloon. Really?
It was a saucer. A flying saucer?
The term flying saucer was overtaken 6 years later in 1953 by the official US Air Force term UFO, unidentified flying object. The US military now wants us to call UFOs UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. But given how much we love sci-fi movies, UFO is still king.
Flying saucers are objects from another planet.
The Navy has no saucer-shaped aircraft or missile.
There's no good reason for keeping this secret for 3 decades.
The government's been lying about UFOs for 50 years.
Now, UFOs are undoubtedly a great subject for movies, but anyone taking the subject seriously has generally been regarded as a little nuts. Take the brilliant Bob Lazar, who used to work at Area 51 and first brought his revelations to the public in the 1980s. Here he is in a much more modern setting with Joe Rogan.
I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God.
Many people made fun of Bob Lazar, but something has surely changed. Politicians, journalists, and military figures are now taking UFOs or UAPs more seriously. The trigger for this change came in 2017 when the New York Times ran a story about US Navy pilots encountering something they'd never seen before.
Dude, do you see that thing down there? And we saw this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area.
Do you ever drop your phone and it sort of bounces off the countertop and then bounces off something else, and it's sort of like no predictable movement, no predictable trajectory.
Yeah.
Such stunning reports are forcing change. As of 2021, Congress has required the Pentagon to provide regular UFO or UAP updates. The following year, Congress held public hearings looking into UFOs for the first time in 50 years.
The department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people.
As for NASA, for the first time, it allowed its UFO or UAP investigation panel to meet in public.
The current data collection efforts regarding UAPs are unsystematic.
And it will publish its first ever report next month. And they have plenty to report on, including this new video released by the Pentagon in April.
Right, that is an unresolved case we are still studying.
Back to our guest now, Stephen Bassett. We heard from Bob Lazar there, perhaps one of the most famous whistleblowers, if you like, on UFOs and extraterrestrial life. He brought out his revelations in the 80s and then did this Joe Rogan podcast, 50-odd million views. He seems very credible. He says he worked at Area 51. He's seen the flying saucers. It seems to me like David Grusch doesn't really move our understanding forward very much from Bob Lazar.
It moves it a lot further forward. Bob Lazar, an interesting story, is kind of complicated. I can't comment too much on its overall validity. It may turn out to be quite accurate. Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper said there was extraterrestrials here. Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell said there were extraterrestrials here. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer said there were extraterrestrials here. Gary Nolan just said it, and he's a Nobel Prize nominee. Bob Bigelow said it on 60 Minutes. I assure you, many, many people have said over the years that yes, there's extraterrestrials here, and there have been a number who have come forward, including people who worked on crash retrieval programs, that have said that is happening. But they weren't getting the kind of attention we're seeing now, because starting in 2017, we entered an era of where this embargo is coming to an end. The government is passing legislation, and so Grusch is the latest individual to come forward who has security clearances, and so I would not want to put him in the same basket as Bob Lazar,
Stephen,
who I like.
Sure.
This is a very powerful witness.
Stephen, can I ask you about that? You said this information embargo has come to an end as of 2017. Sorry, coming to an end as of 2017.
It's coming to an end.
Absolutely. Well, can I ask you why? What is? Look, they have control of the information and they are releasing it. Why? Why now?
They don't have so much control of the information. The citizen science research effort has been pushing against this embargo for 7.5 decades. It's had many victories, got a lot of information out, got documents, but the truth embargo was the policy. We're just not going to accept that. But starting in 2017, with the emergence of that group, it included Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Gary Nolan, and others, and the major New York Times article that they got published in December of 2017, we crossed the Rubicon. Since then, Those in government that want to see this embargo ended are moving forward. They are taking center stage. They are getting everything done. They're setting up entities at the Pentagon. NASA has jumped in. All things come to an end. The truth embargo, it's amazing it lasted 76 years as we enter that age of the internet and social media, podcasts, and all kinds of citizen journalism. It's collapsing, and they know it, and therefore they're trying to get ahead of this in a proper way, hold hearings so the president can confirm the ET presence in a relatively nonpartisan manner.
So just briefly then, Stephen, are you saying that if it were not for pressure groups and investigative journalists, the government and private enterprise would not have revealed any of this?
The citizen science effort has done a great deal, but there's always been people within government that felt the policy should end, and that they have, I guess you could say, become more of a consensus. So it's an inside-outside process.
Right.
We're coming to an understanding together. It's time to end this embargo.
Nick, you were on the inside once upon a time for the UK government handling the UFO project. Is there really a willingness in the government to release this information and to allow the public to know what's really going on?
Well, I think there's some confusion about what exactly this information is. I think I am certainly open to the possibility that we're being visited by extraterrestrials, but unlike Stephen, I'm not one of these people that says this is a certainty. When I was doing this for the British government, we didn't have any definitive proof this was true. We treated the issue seriously. We think it's an important defense and national security issue. These things are in our airspace. They're being seen by our pilots, tracked on our radar, sometimes picked up on satellites. But I don't take the view that we've solved the mystery already. I take the view that we are still working on the mystery and that government doesn't have all the answers. So I hope that whether it's NASA, whether it's the United States Congress, or whether it's the scientific and academic community, I hope that we use this opportunity that people like David Grusch coming forward presents us to show that this is an important issue, and I hope we can solve the mystery. But I'm not, as I say, one of these people that thinks it's been solved. We don't have a spaceship hidden in a hangar somewhere, or if we do, I'm afraid they didn't tell me.
Nick, just to be clear then, and very briefly, UFOs, that's not a matter of faith. Do you believe in them? Do you not believe in them? They do exist. It's just that the explanation is they're either a rather banal thing like a weather balloon, or they might be unidentified because they're another country's technology. Is that the idea?
There are lots of different things. Some of them are misidentifications and hoaxes. Some are secret prototype aircraft. I don't rule out the possibility that some might be extraterrestrial. The skeptics have to be right every time. The believers only need to be right once. I hope it's true, but I don't know that it's true.
Nick, thank you for that. Now, while the US government is ready to officially acknowledge UFOs now, it wasn't always the case. Here's a sample of presidents, past and present, being rather coy, to say the least.
The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship? They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no.
We made every attempt to find out everything about Roswell. And we also sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens.
President Clinton told me that if he had seen evidence, he would tell everyone that he'd seen it. Do you feel the same way?
No.
No, you wouldn't. You don't think we can handle it?
No, I'm afraid it might spin you into orbit.
Okay.
I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet.
Pilots have come in and they said, and these are pilots that are not pilots that are into that particular world, but we have had people saying that they've seen things.
Did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in and he did check and there was nothing.
Well, that's what we're instructed to say.
President Obama says that there is footage
and records of objects in the skies, these unidentified aerial phenomenon. And he says we don't know exactly what they are. What do you think that it is?
I would ask him again. Thank you.
Stephen, we just heard from a selection of the presidents there. Why do you think they're so reticent on this subject, and do you think they'll ever change?
Absolutely. Let me be very clear. Every single president since Truman has known there's an extraterrestrial presence engaging us. They know that because of Roswell. Roswell was a crash vehicle. We obtained bodies, dead, and one living. So we've always known the policy, the national security policy, which was cemented in the Robertson panel in '53, is that this will be embargoed from the American people for national security reasons, deeply classified. And so every president who came into office, one way or another, understood that, was told that, and therefore they're reticent.
Very briefly, do you think the presidents are even informed, fully informed about this subject?
Every president has known there's a presence. Now, how much they were told depended upon how forcefully they wanted to be about it. I think basically it was a matter of that's the case, but the policy is we're embargoing it, and they've gone along with that. One president tried to get that information. That was, well, two presidents made an effort. Jimmy Carter, he was rebuffed, and President Clinton, he was rebuffed. So this is a tough issue, but the position of the government is it is embargoed, meaning you can't go there. And so what you're seeing now in the United States is not an effort to find out what it is. What you're seeing is setting up the staging so that they can, in a responsible way, finally end this long-term lie or long-term misinformation and inform the people, the American people, the truth. It's counterintuitive. I understand people are confused. Why are they doing this if they already know? It's public relations. I call it a public relations-driven extrication. When you have been lying for 73 years and now you have to tell the world, oops, actually we do have a contact, there are crash vehicles, it's awkward. And so they're trying to do it in a responsible, open way so the people will be more generous with the government when they finally learn you've been lying to us all along.
Nick, do you think the presidents really know what's going on, or do you think that private enterprise and some sort of deep state is keeping it from them?
I'm sure every president is briefed about this and some ask about it, but I suspect the answer is not we have a spaceship in a hangar. It's yes, there's a mystery here and we're working on it. But I think a question about this is something that often comes up on a chat show, and it's probably more interesting than being asked about tax or crime or war. So presidents probably quite like it.
Nick, thank you. Well, from presidents to the man on the street, everyone has a view on aliens. In fact, ordinary people tend to give the most extraordinary answers.
A US military whistleblower has said that the US government has in its possession alien spacecraft and bodies of the alien pilots. What do you make of that whistleblower's claims?
I think you'll have to have physical evidence to support it. That's what and then I can believe it.
I find it a bit hard to believe, to be honest with you. I think it's all a bit far-fetched, but I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, I can't prove otherwise.
Why would we be alone?
Yes.
That's it. Why would we be alone?
Do you think governments might hide from their populations that aliens and UFOs exist?
Yeah.
And if so, why?
Because I don't think the public would know how to take it. But if it was me, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing a green thing. Why not?
Area 51. They've been talking about that since I was a boy. You know, Area 51. And you think all this time, all these UFOs, all this stuff, not a scrap, not a pinpoint of any kind of alien material, nothing. I'd love it to be UFOs. I'd give somebody my cat and go with them.
Nick, a very fun selection from the British public there. Some believe in extraterrestrial life, others want to see evidence. Let me ask you, Nick, if there is extraterrestrial life out there, even perhaps on Earth, what are the implications for the human race?
Well, the question of whether we're alone or not in the universe and whether we're being visited, that's one of the biggest and most profound questions we can ask. And if we get an answer, yes, it will impact every aspect of society, every aspect of our lives, politics, religion, science, the economy, technology, and much more besides.
For you, Stephen, it's not a matter of if it is out there. So what does that mean? When are we going to have the breakthrough, and what will it mean for the human race?
I believe we'll get a confirmation this summer. That confirmation is what I call disclosure with a capital D, the formal acknowledgement by heads of state. It will be the most profound event in human history, and we will enter what I call the post-disclosure world. We may even have open contact in a year or two after that. That's about as interesting as it gets. And the answer to the question, what and how will we deal with that in the post-disclosure world, will fill 20, 30, 40,000 books. So I'm afraid it's not enough time to quite go into detail, but let's say it will be interesting and exciting. And I am just fortunate enough, I lived long enough to see it happen.
Stephen, if and when it does happen, please come back and spend a little more time with us on the Nexus. Much appreciated. Stephen Bassett, Nick Pope, thank you so much. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. If you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Type in Nexus, TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.